Crowley gave other definitions of magic.
He wanted to democratize magic.
But he also relies on really difficult, intangible things like astral projection.
Will, for Crowley, means something very specific.
Do what thou wilt.
That is the definition that he would give of magic.
𝗦𝘂𝗯𝘀𝗁.
Aleister Crowley. His flavor of mysticism is sort of simultaneously ancient and modern in the sense that he harkens back to ancient Samaria and, pre-Roman sort of mystical icons and gods and figures and spirituality. But he also relies on really difficult, intangible things like astral projection.
Crowley has become so influential is because he wanted to democratize magic. So there was definitely an intent. Now, whether it was successful in what you say, because I think that there is a bit this tension in Crowley, because on one hand, he wants to democratize magic. On the other hand, he's very much an elitist. So that kind of transpires in the way that he writes and in the way that he comes across.
Crowley was torn between his will to make whatever he was into available to everybody, but is almost impossibility to do so because Crowley's system of magic essentially tethered to what 𝗦𝗂𝗯𝗀𝗲 is as a magico-philosophical system. And that implies all sorts of categories and all sorts of things that should be studied and practiced as well. Also, the famous definition that Angela just gave us, it's problematic in the sense that, will for Crowley means something very specific, which is the essence of 𝗦𝗂𝗯𝗀 itself. 𝗦𝗂𝗯𝗀 is this Greek term that means will, right? But it's a very specific will. It's a sort of divine will. First of all, it's not something you start with, it's something you discover along the line. So when you actually analyze that definition from a 𝗦𝗂𝗯𝗀 standpoint with 𝗦𝗂𝗯𝗀 lenses on, what you realize is that, well, in order to even do magic, in order even to use this tool, you have to discover your will first. And in order to do that, you have to do all sorts of practices and you have to study all sorts of things that will take you at least a good decade.
Do what thou wilt. That is the whole of the law. The rest of that phrase is the rest of this phrase. You already heard the important part. Do what thou wilt. That's the issue with I think a lot of spiritual things that can be interpreted and that are intended to be interpreted. Do what thou wilt it's really fancy words. It sounds like a really elevated and intelligent phrase for whatever the fuck. But what does the meaning of that? Now there's where we start to, back to our original conversation about language and meaning. I have an important motto that I have carved. It's on a ring that I wear and hold very carefully. I used to have a pendant that was a locket. And inside you could write on a little piece of paper, sort of a motto. The idea is that you could touch it if you needed to remember something important. And that phrase for me is it. It seems sort of, dyslexic in the sense that it's so sacred and it means so much to me. And it has kept me in such a spiritual place of peace and happiness. But it's such a vulgar phrase. And yeah, it can mean throw it away. It doesn't matter. But for me, the it and the heart of that is take the leap. It encompasses for me the reality of my mortality and the importance of this singular moment I'm in right now and the fleeting nature of joy and time and you've prepared enough and you know enough and now is the time to do. And in all of that, I feel all of that in the phrase it, right? But someone without knowing me or hearing me explain that could be like, she doesn't give a she doesn't think anything matters. She's ready to throw everything away. And of course, that would be a complete misinterpretation of it, right? And I think that do what thou wilt has something similar, where in certain hands, it means you are free. You are utterly untethered from anyone else's rules or the expectations of you. And it can be such a liberating idea. Go on, go forth, right? But as often happened with Aleister Crowley's literature, it gets into the hands of people that go, kill that guy, rob that bank, lie to that person, destroy that document, do whatever you want. And I think that if Aleister was sitting here, he'd be nodding, saying, yes, I meant both of those things.
For Crowley, magic was the art and science of causing change in accordance with will. So that is the definition that he would give of magic.
Crowley gave other definitions of magic. I mean, even in Magic in Theory and Practice, which, by the way, Magic in Theory and Practice itself is book 3 of a series like they call it ABA or Liber ABBA that has two other, two first books that actually describe, they're called mysticism and magic, magic as in ceremonial magic. And that just gives us also the idea that in order to get to the theory and practice, you have to go through mysticism first, which is really is yoga, and then let's say learn how to put together an elemental temple and a ceremonial magical temple. He gives other definitions. Another one that I really like, that is not as widely known, it says basically that magic is the art to get in touch with entities that exist on a plane outside of ours. So in many ways, he implies that magic is a tool to get information for, other entities that we might not see and perceive with our direct senses, but they're always there and they're waiting for us to contact so we can actually exchange information. And of course, as you can imagine, there's open a lot of possibilities out there.